All right, guys, this one's going to be a little bit different. Typically on the podcast, we've been interviewing primarily men to glean from their experiences and to hear about their expertise in a certain subject area. Well, this one's going to be a little bit different. I'm just going to talk to you today about some things with respect to teaching and training and coaching and discipling our children. One of the things that I know as a Christian dad that's very difficult is knowing if you're doing the right thing with respect to teaching and training your children. I mean, there's so many parenting books out there. There's so many good ones. There's so many that are questionable. There's so many people speaking on this topic. There's so many places to go for information, whether it's blogs or other podcasts or YouTube videos, books, you name it. There's people out there talking about parenting. There's many theories. There's many people that say they're taking a biblical approach. There's many people out there who don't care about a biblical approach to parenting. Well, I've been doing a lot of studying recently and a lot of implementing with my own children, and I've actually gone through some parent coaching programs through the National Center for Biblical Parenting, and we've interviewed on the podcast several of their coaches. We've interviewed the founder, Scott Taransky. We've interviewed Ed Miller and John Skelly, who are also coaches with the National Center for Biblical Parenting. And I wanted to share with you today some things that I've been learning with respect to parenting and some things that are really revolutionary. They've answered the things that I'm learning, and some of the things that I'm going to share with you have really answered a lot of the questions that I've had with parenting. Sometimes you feel like you're just throwing stuff out there and seeing what sticks. Lots of times you just resort to the way that your parents raised you and the techniques and strategies that they use. That's kind of our default with respect to parenting. And lots of times our parents didn't know what they were doing. And so this has been extremely helpful for me, and I hope that it will be extremely helpful for you. I'm not able to obviously to share with you everything that I've been learning and that I know, but I'm going to share with you some first steps today, and hopefully in future episodes I'll be able to share some more strategies, techniques, tools, plans that you can implement to help your children become the men and women that God has designed them to be. What's up, Dad Hackers? My name is Patrick Antonucci, and I am the host and founder of this podcast and community of Dad Hackers. Dad Hackers is a community of Christian fathers who are devoted to encouraging, equipping, and enabling one another to become the men that God has created and called us to be, so that we can raise up the next generation of fully devoted followers of Christ and leave a legacy of multi-generational faithfulness. Now, on this show, we primarily interview Christian men to dive deep into their experiences and insights into what it means to be a Christian man, a Christian husband, a Christian father, and a Christian leader. We ask questions that dig deep into the thinking and rationale and experiences of these men so that we can all learn and grow into the men that God is calling us to be. I'm so thankful that you've joined us today. Make sure you subscribe so that you never miss any of our value-packed episodes. Also, please make sure you leave an honest review if you're listening to this in iTunes or any other platform that takes reviews. Reviews boost the show's ratings, which means that more dads are going to come across our show and benefit from the content that we put out. I also wanted to let you know that we do have a free private Facebook group just for Christian dads. So after the show, make sure you hop on over to the show notes. There's a link for that in there as well. All right, guys. So first thing I want to talk to you with respect to parenting is some first steps. And the first thing that we really have to think about is with respect to the heart. Heart-based solutions are the best and most lasting. You see, most parents have a strategy that basically boils down to behavior modifications. We're trying to get our children to behave in a certain way, and we want to modify that behavior. And I would say that that is not the best strategy for producing lasting change in internal motivation in our children. You see, change in the heart is the most powerful and effective way to train our children. It creates an internal drive to do what's right instead of simply relying on some sort of external force like the parent to adjust the behavior. I'm not saying that parents don't have any part in this. Parents have a huge part, and we'll talk about that. But what I'm saying is we want to train the hearts of our children to do what's right from an internal sense of wanting to do what's right rather than relying on the parents' external force to get them to behave in a certain way. Let me talk just briefly about a couple things with respect to the heart. If you search through the Bible and look at the verses that talk about the heart, lots of times you'll run into things that aren't just talking about the heart as a physical object. You'll see that in the heart, we fight the battles as we learn to navigate life. In the heart, this is the place where we make commitments and decisions. In the heart, we make and break connections with others. It's where we feel a closeness to others. It's where our relationship to others is really built. In the heart, we experience our emotions, and the heart is the place where that drives our emotions. In the heart, we develop desires, whether they're good or bad. And in the heart is where temptation is born. In the heart, we experience guilt, and conviction of our sin begins to develop within the heart. In our heart is where we really feel our passions. If we're passionate about something, biblically speaking, that's felt in the heart. In the heart is where we develop our personal values and establish the moral pillars that really drive our lives and we build our lives on. And perhaps most importantly, in our heart is where we connect with God and develop our relationship with Him. And so this is one of the reasons why it's so very important to focus on the heart and develop heart-based strategies with respect to teaching and training and coaching and raising our children. And as we begin training the hearts of our children, we need to establish a few things. And I forgot to mention this at the beginning of this recording, but as you listen to this, you might want to get a notebook and jot some things down. I'm going to give you some specific action steps as we go through this that you can take to begin the process of parenting the heart of your child. And there might be some things that I say that you might want to write down. There's going to be a couple times where I'm going to ask you to pause the recording so that you have time to think and reflect and pray. I know that a lot of you guys listen to this as you're doing things where you're not able to pause or you're not able to write things down, and that's totally okay. You can still benefit a lot from what you'll hear in this recording and in subsequent ones. And so even if you're not in a position to be able to write things down, still, I encourage you to continue listening. And then at a time later on, when you have some time, I would suggest you jot down your ideas and things that we talk about here. So a couple things that we need to establish as we begin. First thing is you need to relinquish control of the situation. And remember that you cannot change your child's heart. Only two people, and only two people, can change the heart of your child. It's the child themselves and God. You do not have any control in changing the heart of your child. Now, that being said, God can use you as an instrument of change and influence over your child, but you cannot force or ultimately control the heart of your child. And that's the second thing. The second thing is no one has more influence over their child than you do. So while you're not ultimately in control of your child's heart, you are perfectly positioned to have the greatest impact and influence over the heart of your child. God has placed you in a prominent place of influence over your child and an incredible opportunity to develop a relationship with your child to further intensify that influence. And so we can use that influence over our children to help teach and train them in a heart-based approach. And last, we have to remember that all children are different and are unique, and they're not just computers that can be programmed. It's not like we can say a certain sequence of words in a certain formulaic fashion, and then boom, pops out a heart-based motivated child. No, each child is different and unique and takes specific strategies and tools and techniques to train their heart. And we have to remember that heart change takes time, and the process may not be linear. In fact, it's almost never linear, the heart change process. And you know in your own personal lives that your sanctification process, your growth in Christ is not linear. It ebbs and flows. It goes ups and downs. There's peaks and valleys. Same thing with teaching and training the hearts of your children. It's going to take a while, and heart change takes time, and it's not always on an upward trend. You have ups and downs and highs and lows. But the most important first step you can take with a heart-based approach to parenting is to pray. Now, remember, you're ultimately not in control of the situation. So the best thing you can do is go directly and petition the one who is ultimately in control. And this is where you have to start. So what I want you to do is take a few minutes right now, even pause this recording, and write down 3 things about your child that you'd like to present to God. If you have more than one child, I strongly recommend that you start with just one child. The things that we're going to talk about can sometimes feel overwhelming in a process. And you just need to start with one child. I also recommend that you think about, if you have more than one child, you think about all of your children and you try to focus on the one that you have the most strain with in your relationship with them. A huge component of heart-based parenting, or this heart-based approach, is your relationship with your child. As the primary influencer on your child, the best way to increase your influence with them is by increasing the closeness you have with that child through your relationship. And as you pray to God about these 3 things, ask Him to increase the depth and the breadth of your relationship with your child. So I want you to go ahead now and pause the recording, write down these 3 things about your child that you'd like to present to God, and pray to Him about those. And then hit play when you're done with that, and we'll move on to the next thing. Now I want you to take a minute and look back at the list of 3 things that you wrote about your child. How many of those three things, now be honest, were negative? When I did this, all 3 of them were negative because my mind automatically went to the things that I want to change or improve about my child. So it's totally cool if all 3 of those were negative. It's okay. But it's also important for us to be aware of and thank God for the admirable qualities about our children. So what I want you to do now is go ahead and pause the recording again. And this time, take a few minutes to write down and present to God 3 things that are special or unique about your child. So go ahead and pause the recording now and then hit play after you've done that. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that sometimes the challenges we face with our children can seem insurmountable, and the results we're looking for can seem so far off that we're hopeless of seeing them, and we can get discouraged before we even begin. So know this, that a good plan for a heart-based strategy will get results. I want to give you some hope with that. Often you can end up seeing change in as little as the first couple of days or the first week or two. And most parents often see some significant change within 40 days. And we pick 40 days because if you go throughout the Bible, a lot of things happen over the period of 40 days. You know, Jesus was tempted over a period of 40 days. Um, it rained for 40 days and 40 nights in the time of Noah, and many other things that happened over a period of 40 days. And biblically speaking, the period of 40 days is like a period of testing. And so I want you to think in a block of 40 days as you begin to implement the things that we're going to talk about, and give it 40 days to see some significant change in your child. So while change doesn't happen overnight, it doesn't take forever. And that being said, after these 40 days, you won't be done. I mean, you'll want to continue to work your plan that you develop for your child, to tweak it, to adjust it, and to keep on moving forward. And as you move forward, you'll see other things that you want to work on, and other character qualities that you want to instill in your child. And you'll want to begin to work on a heart-based approach with all of your children. And you'll begin to see things within yourself that you need to change. Remember, our goal as parents is to launch fully functioning, internally motivated, Christ-following adults into God's world to do God's work. And I emphasize the word adults because lots of times we mistakenly can think that the goal in parenting is to raise good kids. It's not. Ultimately, what we're trying to do is teach and train adult disciples of our Lord. So if you just make that little tweak in your mindset with respect to parenting, it can really have a profound effect in the way that you look at teaching and training your kids. You're not just trying to raise good kids, you're trying to raise adults. And a lot of the things that we're going to work on are adult skills. But you know what? A 5-year-old can work on beginning to develop adult-like skills. An 8-year-old can, an 11-year-old can, a 15-year-old can. And I want to tell you this, it's never too late to begin a heart-based approach. I know you've probably heard things where by the time the child's 5, he's set in his ways, or by the time they're 7 or this or that, or if you wait till they're 10, it's too late. I don't buy that. I believe that even as you today are working on changing yourself and becoming more Christ-like, at any point in time in your relationship with your child, you can begin to make changes and tweaks into how you parent them, which ultimately, if you follow this heart-based approach, will begin to make changes within your child. It's never too late to begin a heart-based approach. So for you to be able to start seeing a heart change in your child, you have to do several things, okay? So number one, you want to focus on a particular area. If we go back to what I said a little while ago, this is one of the reasons why we start with just one child. I know some of you have 2, 3, 4, 5, or more children, and it's tempting to try to do this with all of your children. Let me tell you, it's going to be an overwhelming process, extremely overwhelming, if you try to implement this with all of your children all at once. you can get to your other children. I'm not saying you have to pick one child and, forget about the rest. No, I'm saying what you do is you begin to implement these things with one child. You see how the process and the framework develops, and then you can apply that framework and that process to your other children. And then you can begin developing a heart-based approach with them. So what we want to do is pick one particular area that we want to work on with our child. When you focus down to one child and you think about that child, there might be multiple things, multiple tendencies that the child has that are undesirable that you want to work on. We're going to pick one and begin to work on that. You want to pray about this whole process. You want to pray individually, and down the road, we're going to pray with your child. Obviously, pray with your spouse. Pray anytime you can. But we want to pray. We want to seek the Lord. We want to go to the one who ultimately can change the hearts of our child. Remember, you don't have control. You have to relinquish control. You are very influential over your child, but you cannot control them. You cannot force a heart change, but you can go to the one who has the greatest impact on the hearts of our children, the Lord. And so we want to pray to him. We're going to also meet with our child to communicate what's going on. We've done this with our children. You sit them down and you say, Mom, depending on their age, you want to tweak the conversation to fit the maturity level of that child. But, I often think of like a 5 or 6 year old, Mommy and Daddy are learning some new things. And so you can expect to see some changes. We don't know what all it's going to look like or sound like or be like, but we're working on becoming a better mommy and a better daddy. And so we wanted to let you know, and this is going to help you become a better son or a better daughter, a better brother, better sister, better friend. And we just wanted to sit you down, take a couple minutes, and let you know that you can see some things changing. And we'll let you know, and we're going to work on this together, and it's going to help us become a great family. It's going to help us serve the Lord better, and it's going to help us become better friends and servants to others. Something like that, of that nature. You can even, I've written it out. When we met with our 4-year-old, I literally wrote out exactly what I was going to say so that I was able to say everything that I wanted to say. It wasn't long. I mean, it was a couple sentences, but it helped me be more prepared to be able to present to her and communicate to her what I wanted to say. And then we're going to develop the plan that will lead your child to the change. So the 4 things that we're going to do are focus on a particular area, pray about it, meet with your child, and develop the plan. Alrighty. So that's actually all that we have time for right now. In the future episodes, we'll talk about how to develop plans for heart change in your child. And in fact, next time we'll talk about having that meeting with your child and where to go from there. I know I gave you a little bit of a taste of what that meeting could look like, but we'll do a little bit more of a deep dive into meeting with your child and then what to do after that meeting, because you can't do everything in one meeting, and it doesn't all happen just in that one spot. All right, so I hope that was helpful to you today and at least whetted your appetite for what a heart-based approach is and how it can be beneficial to you as a parent in teaching and training your child, and even more so in being able to raise fully functioning Christ-following adults who are ready to launch into the world to do God's work. All right, guys, there's our show today. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope that the things that we discussed about a heart-based approach to parenting were a blessing to you, and that you leave this episode better equipped to teach and train your children. I wanted to quickly remind you that enrollment for the Ironman Mastermind is open, and we are accepting new members. So if you're looking for a group of Christian men to lock shields with, who will sharpen you, challenge you, and help you become more of the man God has designed you to be, then you might want to take a peek at what we have going on in our Ironman group. So head on over to the show notes at dadhackers.us/071. And there you'll find links to all you need for connecting with the Dad Hackers community, as well as checking out the Ironman Mastermind. And remember, until next time, Proverbs 27:17, as iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. Stay sharp, brother.